Hi, I'm Mark Mazzaferro, and it's time for another episode of What's the Plan? And with us, as always, on What's the Plan is Planning Director Barton Brierley or Community Development Director Barton Brierley. Thank you for being here, Barton.
It's great to be here, Mark.
It's good to be anywhere. I say that occasionally, and I mean it. That's considering the alternative. So, what's the plan, Barton? How's it going?
We've been very busy. Lots happening, a lot of projects going through, a lot of residential projects that are going through the review process right now.
Yeah, the Planning Commission, usually, well, I should not say usually, but for the most part, you guys have just been meeting once a month.
Right.
But the last 2 or 3 months, you've been meeting every other Tuesday, the first and third Tuesday of the month. There's that much going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of projects.
And what happens at these meetings, inevitably, and that's why we have the meetings, is lots of questions come up and lots of terms get used, and some people get them, some people don't. So that's part of what we're going to do today is kind of go over some of the things that get discussed a lot at your meetings, and kind of go through them and provide some explanations about what we're talking about. And number one is density. So what is I can't even say it.
Density.
Density, thank you. What is density? What are we talking about?
It's simply the number of housing units on a particular piece of property. So if you had a 20-unit apartment complex on 1 acre, that'd be 20 units per acre. If you had 10 homes on 10 acres, that'd be 1 dwelling unit per acre.
Okay. And why do we have so many different levels of density?
Well, there's different housing needs. If you think about the cycle of life, you graduate college, you're not probably going to the first thing go buy some 3,000 square foot house. You're probably going to start with in an apartment, and then maybe later on you go to a townhome, and then or a duplex, and then later on you buy a starter home, and then maybe you buy a larger home, and then it goes back. You're tired of all the space, the kids are gone, so you downsize maybe back to a townhome or an apartment. So, we have people of all those phases of life, and Vacaville makes a great home. So that's why we need different types of housing and different densities of housing.
And even within housing developments, maybe not so much density, but certainly size of homes, right? You go from 2,000, 2,500 up to 3,000, sometimes bigger, within the same development for just that reason. Maybe you like the neighborhood, but your house is too small, or vice versa.
Right.
But you want to stay in the neighborhood. So,
yeah.
Same idea. So how do we decide density and what goes where? How does that work?
It's really our general plan. That's when we went through the process to create a general plan. There was consideration just how much of each of these types of housing we need, where they should go. There's a lot of thought about maybe the higher density project might be next to a shopping center or a school, and just where services are available, and to have some mix in neighborhoods. You don't want to just have all one end of town be apartments and all another end of town be all single-family homes. So there's some desire to have some mixing.
Well, I live out in North Village, and in North Village, there's lots of single-family homes, but there's also 2 apartment complexes. There's, and of course, I can't remember either one of them. North Point, I think, is one of them, and the other one is a Sino project that 2 or 3 years ago. So that's probably a perfect example. And I don't want to go too far off the track here, but there's been times where developers have brought apartment projects to the city, and the neighbors don't want apartments in their neighborhood.
Yeah,
even though it's allowed, right?
Right, and it's in the general plan. It makes sense from a land use standpoint. Yeah, there's always concern when something different or something new or change is happening in an area.
And ultimately, though, the developer is responsible for bringing projects that match the general plan and the zoning for those neighborhoods, right?
That's right. When we have the general plan designation, we expect the developers to follow that. And if they're proposing something that's above that, we'll say, no, it's too much. Or if it's below that, we'll say, no, it needs to
Bump it up.
Yeah.
How often does that happen? I mean, these guys know what they're doing, right? For the most part. Or?
They do. I mean, you buy a piece of property, you know what the general plan designation is, and you know that's normally what you propose.
Right. Okay. So now, this kind of goes hand in hand with density is traffic,
Right.
and everybody thinks their neighborhood has too much traffic. I mean, it's very quiet in my neighborhood, and I don't like it when a car goes by.
Right.
I was like, "What are you doing? That's crazy. Slow down. Park something."
Right.
You know, where does all the traffic come from?
Well, if we think about Vacaville as a community, I really love Vacaville, and one of the things I really love is you can get anywhere really quickly. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a park or work or to church or to visit friends, and it's a short trip to
Right.
everything. But me making all these little short trips, and then you making your short trip to the grocery store, and you know your neighbors making those short trips, that's what makes the traffic in the community.
Right.
And it's okay because that's why the streets are built the way they are. They're built to accommodate traffic. So yeah, when the car drives down your street, it's not like it's a bad thing. That's what it was designed to do. It was designed to accommodate.
But that goes back to amenities that are in the neighborhoods and what's allowed in the neighborhoods. You know, there's always, I shouldn't say always, sometimes there's accommodation for a store or
Right.
some sort of shopping area. Southtown is a good example where there was one parcel that was left for a shopping center and the neighbors didn't want it. So we got rid of it basically.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the way it goes.
Yeah, but we do try to have local parks so that you can walk to the park.
Right.
You know, schools are usually in a neighborhood, and you do try to have a shopping area close by. We have different neighborhood commercial areas, really to shorten those trips so that you can go and enjoy those things without driving a long ways.
I live a half a block from the park in my neighborhood. I love it. So you just walk right over there. And well, most people walk to the park in our
Yes.
neighborhood. It's the neighborhood park. That's the idea, right? All right. So how do you plan for traffic and transportation?
Well, there's several things that you do. You know, road safety is always a big thing. You look at these rural roads, or the ones on the edge of town, and maybe that area gets annexed. Well, we always require the developers to improve the road. You're putting in sidewalks, you're widening the road, you're putting in bike lanes and stuff like that. You're putting in street lights and stop signs. So we're really focused on having a safe road, even if it's got cars on it, which it should have that. We also have different designations of roads. There's arterial roads and collectors and local streets that are designed to carry different volumes of traffic. And we also focus on how the city's laid out. Like we talked about having a park next to your housing development. The council's adopted an infill development strategy. So the reason that's important is, like, we have one infill project that's going to come in for a permit soon. It's right next to a shopping center. That'd be a great spot to put townhomes, which they're going to propose, because all those people can just walk to the grocery store, and that reduces trips. Also, you think about having more housing closer to the center of town or closer to those things. So, like, if you have a vacant piece of property and people say, hey, let's not put as much housing there. Well, where does that go? It goes, further out, and then the cars all end up further out, and then they drive the same distance anyway. It'd be better to have, more development closer to the schools and the shopping centers, the center of town.
And of course, there's always some sort of analysis in terms of, what's adequate for a project and what's not. And this leads to one of my favorite topics, level of service.
Yes.
I don't know why I find that so fascinating. This is a level B, level D, and level F. I don't know why. When that discussion starts, I cannot peel my eyes away from the set. It's stupid, but anyway, tell us about levels of service.
Yeah, that's the way we analyze whether the transportation system is adequate for whatever development is happening, and whether it's really functioning the way it should. And you look at a level of service F. That means F is failure. That's where there's really a traffic jam, and you just can't get through the streets. And level of service E is something that's at full capacity. It's using as much capacity of the roadway as there is. And you really don't want to plan for E because, it only takes, one person
little
walking
thing.
across the street and then suddenly things break down. So the city standards is level of service D, kind of mid D. So there's still some capacity there so that you're not waiting through multiple red lights to get through the intersection, but you're using the system.
And again, how that gets analyzed. How do you analyze it?
You have traffic engineers are required to do traffic studies on all these developments. They do traffic counts and traffic modeling. It's very sophisticated and calculate what the capacity of all the intersections and how much a new development's going to add to those. And you can actually calculate what the level of service should be. And a lot of our streets are level of service C and B and A.
Right.
It's just like there's.
But there are times where certain streets are jammed, right? And that's the peak, and that happens, because there's also a lot of time where there's nobody on the street.
Right, yes.
So that's how you end up with a C when there's a lot of people that are going to be watching those going, whoa, that street is an F.
Right.
Yeah, well, because we're all going to the store or all picking up our kids or whatever. But if you went an hour earlier or an hour later, there's not much traffic.
Yeah, and we actually do the analysis on the peak hour. So you look at the busiest hour in the morning, which is the AM peak, and the busiest hour in the PM, in the afternoon, and you analyze that. And if that's functioning at level of service mid D, then the rest of the day it's even fine. So
Sure.
it's kind of the worst case scenario. If it works, then it's good. So we do look at both the AM and PM hours.
Good. Another one that comes up, before I go too far, do we actually physically put people out there to count traffic, or is that?
No, there's electronic counters these days.
That's those things they drag
Yes.
across the street and the cars run over.
Yeah.
But I've seen people on overpasses, and that's Caltrans, I guess. Counting cars, yeah.
Yeah, that's an old school way
Yeah,
to do it. I've done it. I've sat out the corner and done the tallies.
Okay,
But
all
it's
right.
old school. Video happens.
Yeah,
You can put
sure.
a video camera and just watch the video and count cars from that too.
All right, another one that comes up all the time whenever there's a discussion of a new housing project, and it can be 2 houses, it can be 200 houses, it's water. We
Yes.
don't have enough water we're already rationing. We can't accommodate any more growth. Stop it. Tell us about water.
Well, actually, Vacaville's really blessed with a robust water supply. We're in very good shape. We have Lake Berryessa water, we have State Water Project water, we have wells, and so really we have enough water to meet the needs for this foreseeable future.
Yeah, when we went through that last drought, that was a regular topic at council meetings,
Yes.
where the state required us to reduce our use by 28% or some crazy number, and we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But the mayor and others would always talk about, why are we doing this? We have plenty of water. That's not an issue here. There are cities who are out of water, which is shocking when you think about it. But we're not anywhere near that. Even at the height of the drought, we still had a 5-year supply in Berryessa.
Yeah.
So that's really not a concern. But another one that comes up is water pressure. There's
Yes.
not enough water pressure. And why is this happening? How do we deal with that?
Well, water pressure, you think about how do you get the water pressure. Most people don't know. You turn on the tap and
That's how it
water
works.
comes out.
Yeah.
And, what is it that makes that water pressure? And it's simply elevation. If you look on the hillsides around town, you'll find these water reservoirs, and they are purposely put above the city to provide water pressure. It's that difference in elevation that provides the water pressure. If in Cheyenne, there's in Browns Valley area, there's a new reservoir going on up there, and the reason is they built houses up to just as high as they could be served with that reservoir, and you just weren't going to get enough water pressure, so they put a new reservoir up higher so they could
So to keep building up,
Yes.
and that leads to fire department needs water pressure too, right?
Yeah, that's
same idea.
Yeah, that's the critical thing. We want to make sure that there's enough water pressure at the fire hydrant so that when there's a fire, it works. You get the water pressure out of the hose.
Okay, so maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. I live in North Village, and we're very low. And how come the water is just gushing out of my faucet? It's just normal. I guess that's how you build a house with pressure and all that stuff. That's
Yeah, it's you don't want too high of pressure, or else you hook up your washing machine and it'll just blow out your fixtures. You don't want too low because you want to be able to take a shower and
Right.
have water. So there's kind of this range of water pressure that you want to have, and also the house fixture makes a difference. The pipe in the street's this big and it's got lots of water in it, but the pipe coming to your house is that big around, and so if you're running the dishwasher and watering your lawn and trying to take a shower at the same time,
there's going to be low water
there's going to be low
pressure.
water.
Yeah. And that kind of explains. Let's say we all get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and everybody in the neighborhood takes a shower at 6. There's going to be low water pressure. I mean, neighborhood-wide too.
Yeah.
So North Orchard apparently has a water pressure issue. Is that elevation too there? Or?
Yes, as you go up just north, it gets higher, and that's where there's not as much pressure. There's a big neighborhood there where it still is enough to meet fire flow. It's still enough that everybody gets water and meets standards. It's just not as high as it would be in other parts of the city. Actually, North Orchard Park is 40 feet higher than Andrews Park.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. But
Yeah, right. Because Andrews Park feels like it's up on a mountain. It's
Yes.
on a hill, right?
Yeah,
And
so
it's
that
higher.
so
Wow.
that 40 feet of difference, at the reservoir, it's served by the same, basic.
So that
So
makes
you-
a big impact.
Yes.
So in the Farmstead project, as it's proposed, that's going to add new homes in that area. And is that going to affect the water pressure?
The engineers did analysis, and really it won't. It'll be really a negligible effect. It's because it's really that area. It's the elevation, and that's why you're not getting a lot of strong pressure. But adding more houses really has a pretty negligible effect on it.
Well, what can I say? The water pressure at my house is fine, right? So, but I totally get it because you go to different places and it's like, no, I want it gushing out of there. But that's not the way it works, is it?
Right.
It all depends on where you're at. So let's talk about schools. That's always part of,
Yes.
housing development is you're going to bring so many more homes, and that's so many more residents, and a lot of these residents have children. Where are they going to school?
And that's something we coordinate with the school districts. When we did the general plan, part of the general plan was looking at schools and what the projected needs will be, where new schools should be. And so we actually planned out in the general plan, a new school will eventually be here. There's several school sites. But it's the school districts that actually build the schools. The city doesn't
Right.
build schools. Developers are charged an impact fee
Right.
for schools. So when you build a house, you have to pay in that, which will go to adding schools.
That was a topic at a recent planning commission meeting, wasn't it?
Yes, a couple of them.
Yeah, so it comes up occasionally.
Yes.
But there are times where the developer will set aside a parcel for a school, and I guess that's an agreement they reach with the school district. That's
Yes.
not
Yeah,
us. We're not
right.
involved with that at
Yeah.
all, right? All right. So while we're on the subject of schools, do we have enough room in our schools? Do we need more schools? What's the situation?
It's kind of an interesting situation. School capacity isn't, or school enrollment isn't really growing as quickly as you'd think. I just ran the numbers, and Vacaville's growing at about 1.5% a year. The school enrollment's growing by the public school, regular public schools, growing by less than 0.5% per year.
Wow.
So it's some interesting things of demographics that.
So people are moving here that don't have children, maybe, or school-age children, or
Yes.
they're not having children, or
Yes, or your
Any number of
older
reasons, yeah.
families are just getting older, and their kids are grown, and I moved to Vacaville, but my kids are grown, so we
You're not
didn't-
having any more kids, Bart?
No, we're
Oh,
done. Thank
okay.
you.
All right.
So-
I just thought I'd check.
Love you, kids.
Hey, listen, I'm done too.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But
I'm sorry.
actually, in the north end of town, all those schools have really been declining in population. Hemlock and Orchard and Jepson and Vacaville, the attendance, the enrollment in those schools has been steadily declining.
Well, you look at it again. I live in North Village, so I'm all about North Village, right? But you look, there's no school anywhere near North Village.
Nope, and there's a plan for one. There just aren't enough kids in the
not
district
enough kids
yet
to do it, so you got to take a little trek to get to your school. Of course, we have 3 high schools if you count Buckingham. Well, more if you count all the private schools. So it's like, do we have enough? Yeah, probably. But there's always I want a school close to my neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes it's feasible, sometimes it's not. And
Yeah, and one thing the school districts just can't do, they can't build a school and then hope,
people go, right?
people, homes are built, and so
They
really,
don't speculate. They don't build schools on spec, huh?
yeah, and you just don't have it sitting there vacant
Yeah.
for 20 years. So you really got to, in some of those neighbors, like East Leisure Town, you really got to build all the homes until there's enough kids in that area to actually build a school.
Yeah, and we had that discussion was going on when I hadn't been here too long, and the district had to decide they decided they needed to close 2 schools, and they had a ton of public meetings. They brought in all the folks from all the different agencies. They had this panel of like 30 or 40 folks, and ultimately they decided to close 1. They couldn't agree on which schools to close, so they ended up closing 1. I want to say it was Sierra Vista. And then they ultimately reopened Sierra Vista. I can't remember if they're using that as a charter school or what, but it's being used. So you just don't know. I mean, you said it yourself. Our population is growing, but the school-age kids are not. So certainly not keeping pace. So, all right. So where are we with specific developments that are happening out there? What can you share with us?
There's a lot going through the process now. One is the farm at Alamo Creek. That's the project that's east of Leisure Town, just north of Elmira Road. So that has gone through the Planning Commission, and that will go to the City Council on November 13th.
Okay.
And not to be confused with another project, the Farmstead, which is the project on North Orchard and Fruitvale. So that had a planning commission hearing in October, and that too will go to the city council on November 13th.
Okay.
We have a Pony Express housing project, which is on Elmira Road at Shasta GN.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that would be a high density project.
Is that an apartment?
Yes.
Is that the one you mentioned earlier? Yeah,
Yes.
next to the shopping area?
Yeah. And
Okay.
so that is that'll also go on November 13th. We had several house plan projects in Vanden Meadows, which is kind of south town area that
Right.
went through the planning commission. And our favorite project, the East Main District, has been approved. We had the big reveal
Yay.
party last weekend, and that's 83 units downtown, which again is a great location. We talked about planning the city, so that's been approved, and we're just gearing up for construction plan approval. And
Yeah, the East Main is a game changer, certainly for that end of downtown. I mean, it's just a bunch of empty lots. It's been that way for 10 plus years. So
Yes.
it's so exciting to have a project that's going to go and be built to it'll certainly liven up that end of
Yes.
the town. If nothing else, just the construction will be
Yes.
nice to see. But Pony Express, how'd they come up with that name? Any idea?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's,
that's one I got to look up. I was
yes.
like, there wasn't a Pony Express stop there, was there?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Okay, all right. Well, anyway. Well, listen, this is all good information. We've got, as usual, we've got a ton of stuff going on, don't we?
We do.
And it's a good thing. To get certain things, you have to have certain things in place, and this all works together, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. We're following a general plan and really getting to that quality of life. This we started talking about making Vacaville great.
Great. Well, listen, Bart, thank you very much for being here today, and thank you all for watching this episode of What's the Plan? We'll see you next time.